Welcome to the Commander Crew, a Magic the Gathering Commander YouTube channel where we ask the question, who's your commander?
We want to thank you for watching our videos. You can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and hitting the bell notification icon.
You can also go to thecommandercrew.com to check out our t-shirts, masks, pet hoodies, and other Commander Crew goodies.
If you want to buy any of the cards seen in this video, be sure to click our TCG player affiliate link in the show notes below.
Lastly, you can help us out by heading to our official Patreon page and becoming a direct supporter of the channel. Now let's get to the video. Oh no.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Chris from the Commander Crew, and welcome to another Deck Tech. With my Deck Techs, I focus on a budget to ensure new players can get more easily into the game. As Commander becomes an ever more popular format, the cost of play has become consistently increasing. My goal is to show you that you can build a whole Commander deck on a budget, and it is easy to compete and hold its own. Let's brew this build and see how some pennies can make some serious power. I'd like to shout out to all our followers, as it is because of you that us at the Commander Crew continue to create Magic the Gathering content. If you have not already, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for future videos. This helps the channel and everyone here at the Commander Crew quite a bit. Thank you again for all of your support. With this deck tech, I'm going to discuss the strategy, how to build the board, and how to get a victory. Each deck will break down the primary themes, the ramp conditions, some protection and removal options, the synergy setups, and the win conditions. In this episode, we have Fynn the FangBearerer. He is a 1/3 human warrior with Death Touch that reads, whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. That's right, we're playing Infect. For the primary tactics of this deck, we're going to focus on the strategy of going wide. With this strategy, we're going to focus on filling the board with as many creatures as possible, swinging in for combat damage, and seeking to bring a defeat over our enemies either through the 40 damage of combat or death by Infect. Infect in the past has been very difficult to achieve with 3 opponents. You can easily knock out a single player, but once you do that, you're going to become the target. With Fynn, you are given a broader spectrum of creatures to be played at a much lower CMC that have Death Touch. In addition to being able to apply combat damage and Infect damage with a single creature, it gives our board a much even greater value. First things first, let's ramp and get some rocks on the board. We have Arcane Signature 2 that taps for any 1 color, and we have Soul Ring for 1 that taps for 2 colorless. For mana dorks, we have Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves, Arbor Elf, and Elvish Mystic, which all cost a single green mana, but allow us to tap a green or untap a forest to help us ramp overall. We also have One with Nature for a single green, where an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you search for a library or a basic land put on the battlefield tapped. And Sakura Tribe Elder for 2, where you can sacrifice him, where he can be a blocker, but when you sacrifice him, you search for a basic land and put on the battlefield tapped. And then rounding out the last of it is 3 visits for 1 and a green, Rampant Growth for 1 and a green, and Kodama's Reach for 2 and a green. Each of these will let us search for a forest or a basic land and put on the battlefield. And with Kodama's Reach, we get to search for additional land and put it into our hand. Now let's start off with those artifacts to get some extra value on the board. Lightning Greaves for 2 colorless can equip for 0 gives our commander haste and shroud, and Swiftfoot Boots for 2 equips for 1 but gives our hexproof and haste. These offer a lot of protection for our commander because he will be a target. Then we have Viridian Longbow for a 1 which equips for 3, where it gets tap this creature to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. This works great with synergy for Death Touch. Ronus Monument for 3, where other green creatures you control cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast a creature, a target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample. This basically makes an even bigger buff. And then Boa Nylea, which costs 1 green, where attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. This can come in absolute clutch later on. And for 1 and a green, you can tap it, put a 1/1 counter on a creature. It deals 2 damage to our creature with flying. Flying is always a menace. Or you gain 3 life. Or you can even put 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. That's a little bit of recursion on that too. Since Fynn cares so much about Death Touch, let's get a little touch of death. We have Moss Viper for a green. We have Tajiro Blightblade for a green, and Sedge Scorpion for a green. These are all 1/1 vanilla Death Touch creatures, can get the board started up really quickly. Wasteland Viper for a green is a 1/2 Snake Death Touch, but you can discard a card later on to give it +1/+2, and a target creature gains Death Touch. Narmnam Renegade for a green 1/2. It has Revolt, so you can put a 1/1 counter on if a permanent left the battlefield. And Narwhal Dryad for a green is a 1/1, but also gets +2/+2 if you have Delirium. Heir of the Wilds for a 1 and a green for a 2/2 Death Touch, where you can get +1/+1 if you control a creature 4 or greater. Deadly Recluse for a 1 and a green for a 1/2 Reach and Death Touch. Ambush Viper for 1 and a green, Flash Death Touch for a 2/1. And Okame Adversary, 3 and a green for a 2/3, but it can cost 2 less if an opponent controls a green permanent. And when it deals damage to a player, you draw a card. Now the infection begins. Let's talk about infect creatures. Glisten or Null for a green is a 1/1 infect. Ichor Claw Mirror is a 1/1 for 2 colorless, where when it becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2. Necropede is a 1/1, but when it dies and goes into the graveyard, you put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. And Plague Mirror for 2, but it also taps for a color, so it's a little bit of ramp as well. We have 2 and a green for Rotwolf, but whenever a creature is dealt damage by Rotwolf this turn dies, you draw a card. Bear for 2 and a green for a 2/3 infect. Blight Mamba, a 1/1 for 1 and a green, but you can also regenerate for 1 and a green. And then Sabertooth Cobra, which is the old school, when it deals damage to a player, guess what? They're getting Infect again. It's pretty awesome. It's like the old school way of Infect before Infect was a thing. So they can't avoid this, but it's still pretty neat to have this in this deck. Now we want to protect our creatures and avert them from getting in the way. We want to make sure they get in with no issues at all. Snakeskin Veil for a green, Ranger's Guile for a green, Blossoming Defense for a green, and Heroic Intervention for 1 and a green give either all of our creatures protection in Hexproof or a single creature in Hexproof. And some of them even give a buff on top of it as well. Then for some more protection and evasion, we have Asceticism for 3 green where creatures you control can't be targeted with spells and you pay 1 and a green to regenerate. Trailblazer's Boots for 2, but equips for 2, and the creature has non-basic land walk. That pretty much means it's gonna get in, no problem at all. Champion of Lambhole for 1 green for a 1/1, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you put a counter on it, and creatures your opponents control can't block creatures with power that are less than Champion of Lambhole. Pretty awesome because you'll be playing a lot of creatures in this deck. And then Bellowing Tangleworm for 3 green for a 4/4 Intimidate. Other creatures you control that are green have Intimidate. Intimidate's a pretty neat ability. Creatures can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and our creatures that share a color with it. Yes, we're probably facing someone who's green, but it's a little bit of evasion to help get in that extra damage. Now you can't have a deck without having the proper draw spells. Let's draw it out. Guardian Project for 3 and a green. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Beast Whisperer, 2 green for a 2/3 Elf Druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you draw a card. Harmonize, simply 2 green, draw 3 cards. Mask of Memory, 2 and equip for 1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards and discard a card. Pretty epic. You want to basically draw as many as possible. Then we have Toski, Bearer of Secrets for 3 and a green. Can't be countered, it's indestructible, and it attacks each turn of Cable. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. We're going to be swinging in a lot, so this is going to give us a lot of draw effects. Now we'll have a little bit of a backup squad, like the extra value we want to add to the team. Evolution Stage 2 and a green for a 3/2 Elf Druid. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you proliferate. This basically allow us to get even more counters on Infect on our opponents. And then Orin Frostfang for 3 green, 2/6 Snake. Attacking creature you control have Death Touch. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. This works in great synergy with our commander because even if a creature doesn't have Death Touch, this will give it Death Touch. So it's a little bit of an evasion, but it also works very well in tandem with Fynn because now we can get even more Infect counters. We have Thunderfoot Baloth for 4 green for a 5/5 Trample, but if you control your commander, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Trample. This is basically, Fynn costs 2. This is going to get out there very easily. Hornet's Nest for 2 and a green for a 0/2 Defender Insect, but when it's dealt damage, you put that many 1/1 green insect creatures with Death Touch and flying on the battlefield. This can take a massive hit and create a massive board. And then we have Vigor for 3 green for a 6/6 Trample, but if a damage we dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. You put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. When Vigor is put in the graveyard, you shuffle it into its owner's library. A little bit of recursion so you don't mill yourself out, but also the fact is not all your creatures are going to be protected and buff themselves even more. Now let's find a way to remove and recur. For removal, we have Return to Nature for 1 green, where you can choose 1, destroy an artifact, enchantment, or exile a target card from your graveyard. Nature's Claim for a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and our controller gains 4 life. Beast Within for 2 and a green, destroy target permanent, they get a 3/3 Beast token. And Acidic Slime for 3 green for a 2/2 Death Touch Ooze, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. And then for recursion, we have Creeping Renaissance for 3 green, choose a permanent type, return all cards of the type from your graveyard to your hand, with flashback 5 green. This way, if all your creatures go to the graveyard, you can bring them back all at once. Road of Return for green, choose 1, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, or put your commander from your hand from the command zone, or you have Entwine for 2. Regrowth, return target card from your graveyard to your hand, and then Bala card Recovery for 2 green, which you can tap for a land on the backside, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Recursion is always very important, so never forget about this. Now let's talk about some gains. Let's make that board as massive as possible. Beastmaster Ascension for 2 and a green. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you put a counter on it, which also works great with Proliferate. And whenever it has 7 more counters, creatures you control get +5/+5. You have a lot of creatures swinging in. This is going to get to a lot of counters very fast. Scale up for a green, where until on a turn, target creature becomes a 6/4 worm, but it also has Overlord for 4 green. So you make your entire team a 6/4, so when you have Infect, this can do a lot of damage. Return to the Wild Speaker for 4 and a green. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-humans you control, or non-humans you control get +3/+3. We're probably going to go with the latter, but that first half can work out pretty well. And we have Triumph of the Hordes for 2 green. To end a turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, gain Trample and Infect. This can help us swing in for that last bit of Infect damage that we need. And then we have Blackblade Reforged for 2, but a legendary equipment is 3, but regular equipment is 7. But the thing is, equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. Put this on an equipped creature that has Infect, and it's basically going to be a one-hit kill, so don't forget about this card at all. Now to round it out, our non-basic lands. We have War Room that taps for colors, pay 3, and pay life equal to the number of colors, which is 1, and draw a card. Karn's Bastion taps for a colorless, 4, Proliferate. Scavenger Grounds and Ghost Quarter to help get rid of certain specific things. Scavenger Grounds taps for a colorless, 2, and sacrifice it, exile all cards from all graveyards. And Ghost Quarter, sacrifice it, destroy target land. They search for a land, but now we can get rid of a land that's causing us a lot of issues. Then we have Rogue's Passage to give a creature unblockable feature on. And then Turn Timber Symbiosis, which is 4 triple green, where you can look at the top 7 cards of your library and put a creature card on the battlefield with the CMC 3 or less. And if it is, you put 3 additional counters on it. And this can basically help out a lot because it digs deep into your deck, and there's so many creatures that have CMC 3 or less that's going to hit them. And on the backside, it does have a land. And then Castle Garenbrig, where it enters the battlefield, tap unless you control a forest, pay 2 green, and add 6 mana. So basically you can go from 5 mana to 6 mana. And this is a mono green build, so this is going to help out a lot to get more creatures out quickly. Now, these are the cards that I would add if I wanted to break the bank. Basically, if I had no budget in mind, these are the cards I would throw in. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx to basically get tons of mana. Same thing with Growing Rites of Itlimoc. It digs a little deep, but then you can tap basically for a Gaia Screen on the backside, which you can really flip over very easily. And then Inkmoth Nexus, where it taps for a colorless, but it can become a 1/1 creature with Infect later on in the game. And then we have Worldly Tutor to search for a creature card, Green Sun Zenith to search for a creature card and put in the battlefield, and it shuffles back in. The Great Hand is just because it gives so much value. It costs X less, where X is the greatest power, so it may not be that high, but it can still definitely help out. It taps for 2 green, and it gives you 2 life, and whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 counter on it, and you draw a card. Then we have Sword of Truth and Justice for 3, equipped 2, gives pro white and pro blue, but the biggest thing is it gives you the ability to proliferate. That can help out a lot because you want to get this command to get in there, or any other creature with deathtouch, and proliferate as much as off as possible. Then we have Vorinclex Monstrous Rider for 4 green for a 6/6 Trample Haste, where it's got Trample Haste, but if opponent will get a counter, they get double. And if they want themselves were to put a counter on it, they get half. This basically makes everything go for Infect go so much faster. This would pretty much be one of the first things you'll want to get. Commanders play for 1, equip commander for 3, and equip cost for 5. Equip creature gets +3/+3 and pro colors from everything that's not its color. So basically this gives everything except for pro green for Fynn. It's pretty epic. And then Crater Hoof Behemoth for 5 triple green for a 5/5 haste. And when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get trample and +X, which the X is the number of creatures you control. You're going to have a lot of creatures on the board, so this is going to give a massive swing. And that's my Fynn build. It tries to be as low as possible to the overall board state, fill the board with as many creatures as possible, give everything death touch, and just swing in. I absolutely love combat damage, and Fynn gives a new outlook on Infect. I'm pretty stoked to play this in games, and I hope you really enjoyed this deck tech. For the primary deck, the CMC is so low. Pretty much everything in this entire deck either costs 1 or 2 mana because of all the creatures that are so low to the ground. Fynn himself only costs 2, so you can get this board to be filled up as soon as possible. So you want to make sure you get that proper draw engine going and just get as many creatures as possible. This overall deck tech costs literally under $200. It's TCG players, $158. That's pretty epic. So take out a few cards, you can basically make this deck easily $100. And if anything, you can add that Vorinclex, add like $30-$40, and you have a massively strong deck. I'm pretty stoked about Fynn the FangBearerer. I cannot wait to play it out. I truly hope that you enjoyed my deck tech. Please remember, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification for future videos because it really does help us out a lot. How would you build Fynn? Would you keep him straight death touch? Would you give everything like kitchen soup style where you give everything else a death touch counter on it? Let me know how would you build it. Let me know how you'd build it. Let me know what you take out. Would you say straight go all out, or would you just make it as cheap as possible? I'd love to hear in the comments down below. Again, one more time, thanks for watching. This is Chris and the Commander Crew. You have a great day. Peace.